It's 8:52. Alan Quinlan is with us to talk to us about that Munster situation. It's very early, Alan. We're not going to overreact, but at the same time, it was pretty abysmal.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, Ger. Look, I think the handling errors and the mistakes, the lack of cohesion, the energy, there's so many things there within their game at the moment that was really, really poor yesterday. I think after last week, probably the first match was difficult, and we saw a lot of handling errors in that game. But again, yesterday, a lot of changes in the team for sure. But just a lot of the basic errors are really, really, really poor. And I think it was a bit of a somber situation for them yesterday. I think credit to the Dragons, to be fair. I think they're the only Welsh side that won this weekend, and Munster were a big scalp for them, given what happened last week away against Edinburgh, and their director of rugby, Dean Ryan, what he said about the players and having been replaced. So I think they just didn't handle that situation at all well, and just played really, really poorly.
Yeah, I mean, you would have said before the game that they were up against a bit of a rabble, considering what the mood music was like. So for Dragons to turn it around, and then to be able to come from behind in the last 10 minutes to win the game, like, that would be the most worrying part, that you couldn't actually put down a team who are as affected badly off the field by what's going on. So what are the most concerning aspects of the performance?
Just physically, they weren't able to cope with the aggression that the Dragons were bringing. They should have known. I'm sure they spoke about it, that you're going to get a group of players that are going to come out and be very aggressive. They're kind of playing for their lives. Their desire and commitment was questioned after the previous week, and just very concerning. Soft in contact, soft in the breakdown. And it's been a really poor start for Munster, given the two pre-season matches, and I've spoken about that, and that's the reality. Is there was a lot of chopping and changing in both those games, and at halftime in both those games. So we kind of had four halves with different teams, and then last week they lose, and this week they lose. So it's been a dreadful start for them, and I think I'm looking at a lot of the comments online from Munster fans, and I think there's a lot of worry and concern now. This is a really negative one, and it was as bad probably performances as we've seen in a long, long time. And so I think it's obviously very early days, Ger, but the players have got to take responsibility here and either fix this on themselves and just be mentally stronger. Of course, you've internationals coming back, and you think on paper that it's going to work and it's going to be perfect, but that's their first game of the season. So, but it's hard to give a lot of mitigation. I mean that respectfully to the Dragons. When you see Munster not even being able to win crucial lineouts, overrunning the ball, wingers on box kicks, not actually contesting in the air, the opposition catching it on the run. Like, that's down to desire and toughness and hardness and mentally.
Quinny, is it down to fitness? Like, is that the problem, that they got their pre-season wrong? Obviously, a lot's been made of the week off and players getting married and all of that. Like, there's so many very basic errors. Like that sounds like a team that mentally can't get to it because maybe they're just not fit enough yet.
Well, they're 2 weeks off because they had another break at the start of pre-season. They trained for 2 weeks and had a week off, and then they had a week off near the end of the block. So, look, I don't know, Nathan. They're just not battled hardened at the moment, and they seem to be way behind. I know this pre-season plan, and people again mightn't be too happy with it, was kind of put in place by Johan van Graan before he departed. That was the plan, and this stuff was planned out a couple of months in advance. But they have a lot of work to do, and fitness could be an issue. I just think that fitness really plays a part when you're under pressure. Being undercooked in matches is why you play pre-season matches, to get the rust and the cobwebs away and off yourself. And I just think that it's really, really worrying. It's hard to kind of sum up because there was so many things going wrong. Like if they made a few defensive mistakes yesterday, and that was the issue. But it was a bit of everything. I think Mike Haley's pass at the end just really summed up the execution and the inability to catch pass properly and just execute. I think, look, they tried again, and obviously they tried it. Zebo makes the break. It's the high tackle. I think the break there. But a lot of the time they're just going across the field laterally, and I think Dragons were just fanning out, and they were loving the situation. And you saw no energy from Munster to kind of really kind of impose themselves. They probably played for 10 minutes in the game, and that was before half time. It might have been even less than 10 minutes. And maybe that was the worst thing that happened to them in a sense. They went ahead. They went in at half time probably thinking, yeah, well, look, it's going to be fine now in the second half. I'm sure if they went in 15-3 down at half time, that the Munster coaches would have really hopped off them, but they just didn't react. And it's worrying that some of the basic errors and mistakes, but fitness could be an issue with them as well, and just being undercooked as well. So look, it's difficult. As I said, there's some players playing their first game yesterday, but they should be so much better than that.
So how quickly do they turn this around where everybody's like, that was a bit of a blip and this is the real, we can see the impact of the coaching ticket, we can see the impact of the best players being fully fit? How long is it going to take before we can react properly?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you need a run, Ger, with a settled team, and obviously with the emerging Ireland players away, the other provinces have to deal with that as well. But I think they've just had no continuity in selection, and something again that has affected Munster a fair bit in the last few years. They actually need to play regularly together and try and get a settled team. It's hard to do that in the modern game because you so much. The internationals are away and there's injuries and there's a lot of chopping and changing, but they've just got to try and get a really good performance against Zebra next weekend, and you think they're going to be going up to Galway then, who are to play Connacht, who are in a bit of a dogfight themselves after losing their first two games. They have the Bulls this weekend, which would be really difficult as well. So that's not going to be easy for them as well. And if you lose 3 games out of your first games, well, it's going to be very, very difficult to be in that playoff mix, because the reality is the 4 South African sides are going to be right up there again this year. They've started much better and they're going to be really, really strong again.
And their best players are still to come back as well, the South African.
Yeah. So it's very concerning and worrying. And we said about the minimum situation where Munster this year is make playoffs in both Europe and URC, but it's really that this game could come back to haunt them when it comes to getting, even a home quarter final or something like that.
Yeah.
We saw what happened to them last year. So they have to have a really honest look at themselves. And so, like, if you started going into individual performances yesterday, it's pretty shocking, really, to be honest. Some of the stuff that we saw, the real basic mistakes that were being made, and the players have got to take ownership of that. And I, in fairness to Graham Rowntree, we give out last year and a few times in the previous couple of years about Johan van Graan not really being quite closed in interviews. I think Graham Rowntree was really honest yesterday, and challenged these players.
I think. I wonder if this is a bit of a wake-up call for many fans, thinking that actually this is going to be easy. They're going to come in, they'll be able to implicate the new plan quickly, and lo and behold, a new Munster will be born. Or actually, is there going to be a transition period where it's pretty grim for a while?
Well, it's yesterday would indicate, that's the case, unless it's sorted out pretty quickly. When you have a lot of things to fix in training, it's kind of, do you kind of skim on all of them, or do you kind of really just take it step by step? So it is going to take a little bit of time for them, and but they would not be feeling good about themselves yesterday, and it does ramp up the pressure. It's a tough job for the coaches, and that's the reality. There's some players, probably when you go down the depth charts, that are on the basis of what we saw yesterday, even though on paper was a pretty strong Munster side, that are they good enough? Are they going to, be able to play at this level and play at the required level that's here. I know that sounds very harsh so early on, but I'm talking about the basics here. And I'd stand corrected by anyone who says I'm not trying to be over the top. It is very early days, but really, really concerning was the energy and the desire and the aggression. Stuff that's in your control. Okay, you'll have a missed pass and you'll have missed tackles and you'll have someone switching off in a line out, and the execution a little bit can be tricky at times and they can make mistakes there. But what really concerned me was they seemed to be kind of bullied yesterday. You just look at the energy out of the Dragons players. They were piling into Munster. They were smashing them. And there was very few people to if any, try to take any sort of control and really kind of smash them back as well, So
yeah.
Very, very soft in the collisions. And, if you do that going to Wales, no matter what kind of team you have on paper, you're going to be in trouble. And I remember on occasions going over there, and the biggest frustration Declan Kidney would have had with us is if we got bullied there, and we weren't right mentally, and maybe they thought yesterday, and again, it's a harsh learning curve for some of these players that you just have to be really, really focused. And if you go back to the start of last season, Ger, the Dragons should have beaten and probably could have beaten Leinster over there. A strong Leinster side. So this was always going to be kind of tight, but the inability to kind of eke out a win here, control the tempo of the game, and put them under pressure when it was needed was just lacking, and that is a big concern.
Okay, the Connacht Munster game on Friday week is going to be huge, it feels, and hugely important for both sides already. Connacht conceding an insane amount of points in every game, it feels like now. The Stormers game was tight until Bundy Aki's moment of madness, and watching Bernard Jackman was saying like it was easier to make a proper clear out than what he actually did. This isn't the first time Bundy Aki's been sent off, and his reaction as well with the referee really wasn't right. Do you think this will have longer term implications for Bundy Aki than just the red card and possible suspension in terms of even Ireland?
I don't think so. I think I give you my take on it, Nathan. When I saw the tackle, and obviously he questioned the referee after the red card, I didn't put a lot of heed in it because it was kind of a reactive look at it, and I was just trying to process it. I really thought that I probably would have felt the same. What else am I supposed to do? And then when you calm down and you look at it, well, you just cannot fly in like that. And you have to get some sort of an arm situation going there to try and get the clean out. And if he makes contact then with the player's head or the back of his neck, well, you have some sort of mitigation. But I think the fact that his arm didn't probably come up, and it was so forceful and so quick. Obviously, he's trying to clean Sanalta out of it there, but he's received a pretty long-term injury and a grim kind of prognosis from a shoulder injury that he received in that contact. It didn't look good. So you look at the reaction online and listen to some other journalists and people talking about it, and the reality is it was reckless, and the reaction afterwards is very, very avoidable. I think he's not going to change the referee's mind there. And I don't think it's going to have long-term implications regarding Andy Farrell not picking the Irish squad. But I just think, and I'm probably no one to talk when I was in that situation when you're in the heat of the battle, but you've got to be calmer. I'm not saying I would have.
How did you find yours then, Quinny?
I just think you kind of get that kind of that adrenaline and emotion, and that's the way he plays with his heart in his sleeve. He's aggressive.
He does know he's going to get he does know he's going to get red carded for that though. Like, is there not something there where you're saying this is now a liability? This could happen in a World Cup quarter final or in a game against South Africa in the World Cup. We're down to 14 men. The game's over. Like, at some point, the penny has to drop for Bundy Aki that it is unacceptable. From rugby's perspective, it's not great. Like, man prone, you know, man prone. It's the cheapest of cheap shots that it looks like anyway.
I don't think the intention is to have a cheap shot. I think his intention is to smash the player out there, but he gets it wrong, Ger. I think he plays on the line with that aggression, and you know he's very physical. And I think on reflection, absolutely, he'll know that he was wrong. He was wrong with the entry point, the force, and the reaction afterwards. I think, you know, we've seen one or two moments from Bundy. I think it was last year in one of the EPCR games. He had a similar situation with a referee after the game. Did apologise. And, you know, I'm probably not in a position to lecture him, because you kind of go into a zone there where you don't see reality, and you have to control your temper there. And he's got that wrong. He's got it wrong 100%. He's got the clean out wrong, and he's got the reaction wrong. So, you know, I think he's obviously, you go back to the summer in New Zealand, and he's been brilliant for Ireland. He's not a young player, but he's got to learn this quickly. And I'm sure Andy Friend will talk to him about that, and I'm sure Andy Farrell will as well. And you've got to be careful. But he's too good a player just to kind of go, well, he's a liability. I don't think he's a liability. I think he just needs to be careful. Again, not a young player, so people could argue and say, well, he's a lot of experience, and he's an incredible impact in Irish rugby.
Look, that's the thing.
Absolutely brilliant.
Well, that's the thing, and we want him to be available for selection, and we want him. So he's not going to be available for selection for the game against Munster now, which could be, like, it's not season defining because it's far too early for that. But like, it's a massive game.
It's a massive game for both sides, Ger, because you know, you lose another game, like Connacht are potentially losing their first three, unless they pull some rabbit out of the hat against the Bulls at the weekend and win there.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what the mood will be like there.
0-4.
And then and then Munster. Look, you think of course they'll win against Zebra this week, but they've got to get a performance as well. And that game in Galway, and we've seen the last couple of years, Munster and Connacht, there's been a lot of niggle in it. There's been a lot of aggression, and he'll be a big loss to them.
Yeah.
You know, there's no doubt about Bundy. A fit, firing Bundy Aki is an impact to any team. But he's got to sort this out pretty quickly, and make sure that for the rest of the season that, you know, he has a clean slate, and he just tempers the aggression a little bit, or even the reaction, you know, and just be more accurate there. Look, we know what he's trying to do. Connacht are making a line break, but you know, when I look back, I looked at it multiple times. There's other parts of the body that he can hit and try and, you know, hit the back of the jersey or side on a little bit. And the player's injured now. He's out for a long time.
And that's a guy, like, sure, I think it is going to...
He's a really good bloke, and he's, you know, if you asked him, were you trying to injure a player? No, he's not. He's aggressive and he plays like that, but he's just got to be careful.
I know, but you know the point. No one was trying to injure people when they were tackling high in the air, and then players were ending up...
Players were injured.
You know, and that's the impact. The intention doesn't really matter. It's the impact that ultimately the sport needs to legislate for, and it opens up a much broader conversation. I do want to make one further point here. We were talking about Nathan Doak and how exciting it is that he's emerging as a potential scrum half with you know, for Ireland maybe, and then you know, John Cooney comes along and is like, hang on a second, did everybody forget about me? Why aren't you talking about me? At the weekend he was sensational. Ulster's attack, maybe not their defence, but their attack is sensational at the moment. They're stunning to watch, and Cooney's playing the rugby of his life, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I think it was an incredible performance, and it was one that that was a strong Scarlets side. You know, Vi Fafita is playing, Sam Lucy, you know, loads of power, two big second rows there, loads of internationals, and I thought that was a real tester for them. And you talk about Munster, Ger, a minute ago, Nathan. It's the mental side, the body language, the energy, the aggression that Munster are really lacking, and Ulster seem to have that little bit of spark at the moment. They seem to have that little drive, that energy. Their conditioning looks brilliant. On paper, kind of when I was looking at the forward packs beforehand, I'm saying this is the one that's going to really test them now. We're going to see where they're at. But their energy levels and enthusiasm to get into the breakdown and be really aggressive, make a lot of hard yards with their carries. I thought they were brilliant. It was superb to score 7 tries. And John Cooney, he did send out a reminder there to everybody. And, I said it last week. Dan McFarlane is really lucky to have 2 brilliant scrum halves like that who can offer so much. Cooney is that bit more, has that little bit more of a spark of being able to bounce around the place, and he runs brilliant inside lines. He's incredibly quick, he makes lots of line breaks, and he just seems to be on people's shoulders when they make breaks. And,
a bit more like Gibson Park than any of the rest of the ones we have. So look, plenty of you to get your teeth stuck into in the Red 78 this week, Alan. Good stuff. Thanks a million. We'll leave it there. Cheers.
Cheers, thanks lads.
It's Alan Quinlan. The full Munster Wake will take place on the Red 78 this week with Alan and Niamh Briggs.